Senator Hirono, thank you for joining us. We saw you yesterday,
Aloha,
of course,
Hallie.
during that committee hearing for Judge Gorsuch. Let me ask you this. This is really the first ever partisan filibuster of a Supreme Court nominee. Do Democrats really want to have that distinction?
We want a Supreme Court nominee who will actually get more than the bare minimum of Senate votes. And nobody's forcing Mitch McConnell to take his caucus down this path. And so for him to start blaming the Democrats, I think, is really uncalled for, especially as he unilaterally announced that that he would not proceed at all with Judge Garland's nomination.
But at this point, Senator, this is not surprising for Mitch McConnell. This is kind of the road that folks expected to go down, once Democrats made it clear, like your colleagues on the Senate Judiciary Committee, that they would try to filibuster.
Yeah, there are battles worth fighting, and this is one. Judge Gorsuch is not going to be a justice for all of the people, and those of us who sat through 4 days of the Judiciary Committee hearings, I certainly came to the conclusion that he would just continue the trend of the Roberts Court to move toward continuing to support corporate interests over individual rights. And there are so many decisions like this, 5-4 decisions, and in fact, today is Equal Pay Day. It's taken women this long to make the same amount of money that it takes a man to make at the end of the year. And so one of the 5-4 decisions that I'm sure Judge Gorsuch would have been on the side of limiting the right of Lilly Ledbetter. This is the Lilly Ledbetter case that surprised all of the court watchers, in which they really constrained a woman's ability to get her day in court for discriminatory pay. And that's why every member on this Supreme Court makes a difference, and why the most conservative people in our country, organizations such as well, you know which organizations, are supporting Judge Gorsuch to the tune of spending over $10 million on his behalf.
But I think at this point it is very clear, right? I know that some, including Senator Schumer, for example, have said, hey, if you can't get the votes, change the nominee. That is not going to happen. So are you worried then that this, and listen, this is the road we're headed down, Senator. Does this mean the end of the legislative filibuster as well? That is something that could impact policy across the board for decades to come.
I doubt very much that we'll get rid of the 60-vote requirement to move legislation, because that would make us that would make us the U.S. House. I don't think, and with all due respect to the U.S. House in which I serve, it's just total majority rule there. I think that most senators do care about the institution and the process whereby we come to some kind of an agreement or consensus on legislation. I don't think there's, as my friend Sheldon Whitehouse said this morning, I don't think there's that appetite to move down that road for legislation.
I guess I just flashed back to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and I don't know that people would have said that there would be a nuclear option on a Supreme Court pick either, right? So I just wonder, how, do you worry that we're starting a slippery slope here?
I think that the inability to come to some kind of a consensus, a large part of it is due to, in my view, the leadership. Here's Mitch McConnell, who announced at the very outset of after President Obama got elected, that his goal in life was to make sure that President Obama did not get reelected and that he would stymie his efforts at every turn. It's one of the reasons that led us to change the rules to allow for an up or down vote on the president's nominees, because hundreds of judicial nominees as well as appointments were being held up by the Republicans. They filibustered over 500 times. And so we are where we are. I'm hopeful that as we go forward that there will not be a nuclear option on legislation. And as I said, nobody is forcing Mitch McConnell to go down this path. If he really cared about a Supreme Court, the lifetime appointment, making decisions that impact our lives for decades, that person, all those nominees should get at least 60 votes to go forward. I don't think that's being unreasonable.
Do you think you could flip it and flip that argument if you're, for example, Mitch McConnell, and say, hey, Democrats are the ones who could not filibuster, right? And sort of make the opposite argument from that perspective?
Well, that's why we are where we are. But in my view, a justice nominee who is supported by the most right-wing groups who have put him on their list. And in fact, one of the reasons that this whole nomination, I think, is being fast-tracked faster than any other Supreme Court nominee, with not giving people in America a chance to really weigh in, is because there is a very important case having to do with separation of church and state that these conservative groups would want Judge Gorsuch's vote on.
Senator
and so we're going to do everything we can to fight the fights that need to be fought.
Senator Mazie Hirono, thank you very much for joining us.
You.
Appreciate it. Big week.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.